Hello, I'm Chidam. Welcome to Live Like a Scientist. I believe science isn't only for researchers. It is for anyone trying to understand the world. In this podcast, we will talk about what science looks like in everyday life. And today, we will talk about friendships. Not because I'm a friendship expert, but because I'm someone who had to work very hard to keep friendships alive. I moved a lot in my life. I grew up in Turkey, then lived in Germany for a short period of time. I moved to the United States. I actually did that move twice. And then my job required some level of presence in London. And now I'm in the Washington, D.C. area. Every move brought wonderful new people into my life. Like new colleagues, new neighbors, new communities. But every move also created a challenge. How do you stay connected to the people you care about? As your life grows, it becomes harder. So that made me wonder, is there actually a limit to how many relationships humans can maintain? And of course, as it is the case for any question that can come to our minds, there is a researcher somewhere who tried to answer that question at some point. This time, it is a British anthropologist named Robin Dunbar. He spent much of his career asking exactly that question. And just before I sat down to record this video, I checked Dr. Dunbar's CV and saw that his first ever publication was in the 1970s. And the last one was only a couple of months ago. What a career, remarkable. People who create a legacy in their profession and doesn't stop creating, they are the only people I look up to. He published 20 books, 300 articles, and hundreds of reports and reviews. Anyways, going back to what the majority of those articles are about, he says, I have found the maximum number of friends a person can have, which is, this is your pause moment. You pause here and you think about what that number can be and write your prediction as a comment under this video. What do you think? How many friendships can we maintain at maximum? If there are people around yourself, ask that question them. What do they think? Let's play this little game together. What do you think? 3, 40, 700, 5,000? Again, if you have time, you can pause here. Because I'm going to give you the answer right now. Dunbar says 150. Yes. He says we can have 150 meaningful relationships. His answer became one of the most famous numbers in the social sciences. The number is named after himself, Dunbar's number, 150. Whether Dunbar's number is exactly 150 or not, the idea has entered popular culture through books such as Gladwell's The Tipping Point and Harari's Sapiens. They use it to explain how human societies scale from small communities to large civilizations. Organizations, governments, and business leaders have also used it. They used it to think about how people function in groups. For example, the Swedish tax authority reportedly reorganized some of its offices to keep working groups below the 150-person threshold, based on the idea that cooperation and trust become more difficult in larger groups. Today we are going to talk about that number, where it came from, why it became so influential, why many scientists disagree with it, and what should we learn from it. First things first, Dunbar's decades of research on this topic started observing animals. He is an evolutionary psychologist. And did you know that humans are not the only creatures that make friendships? Elephants do make friendships too. Whales do. Horses form long-term friendships too. At first this seems obvious. Yeah, of course, lots of animals live in packs, groups. But living in a group and having friends are not the same thing. Many animals spend their lives surrounded by others without forming particularly strong individual bonds. Friendship is different. Friendships mean preference. It means choosing to spend time with certain individuals over others. It means helping some members of the group more than others. It means maintaining relationships over time. And maintaining relationships is actually very expensive. The larger the group becomes, the more social information each individual must keep track of. Like who is allied with who fought with who can be trusted, who shares food, who takes care of whose children. Keeping track of all of that requires brain power. It also requires time. There are only 24 hours in a day. Like, this is something we all complain about, right? At some point, animals simply run out of time. And this observation led Dr. Dunbar to an interesting research idea. And fun fact, at the time of developing his hypothesis, he was working at University College London, as known as UCL, which is also the institution I previously worked full-time and still collaborate. After this trivia, here is his argument. His argument is, maybe there is a relationship between brain size and social group size. Maybe animals with larger brains can manage larger social networks. To test this idea, he examined different species, like 38 different species, not humans, different. So some species lived in relatively small groups, others lived in much larger ones. He looked at the size of a particular part of the brain called neocortex, which is involved in cognition, planning, communication, and social reasoning. And he found a pattern. Species with larger neocortices tend to live in larger social groups. So Dunbar did what scientists often do. He built a model. Imagine a graph with x and y-axis where data points scattered across. Neocortex size on one axis, group size on the other. And draw a line through the points. Now take the human brain size and plug it into the equation. This is how he made the prediction. And the answer was about 150. In other words, the average human should be capable of maintaining roughly 150 stable social relationships. Not random people, not just like people they know of, not social media followers, relationships. People you know personally and who know you personally. So if friendships require maintenance and maintenance is hard, what exactly counts as maintenance? According to Dunbar, for monkeys, the answer is simple: grooming. In many primate species, social relationships are maintained through grooming. If you ever watched monkeys picking through each other's fur, that's not just hygiene, it's friendship. Grooming releases endorphins. It creates trust. It strengthens social bonds. The more time two animals spend grooming one another, the stronger their relationship tends to become. But humans face a problem. Our social groups are much larger than those of most primates. If we had to maintain every friendship through one-on-one interaction, we would never have had enough hours in the day. So this is where Dunbar's theory becomes particularly interesting. He argued that humans invented a more efficient form of social grooming. Conversation, stories, humor, shared experiences, podcasting. He didn't say the podcasting, that's what I'm saying. And he added gossip. Yes, I know now gossip usually gets a bad reputation, but when we hear the word gossip, we imagine people spreading rumors or talking behind someone's back. But from an evolutionary perspective, gossip serves a different function. When I tell you a story about another person, I'm not just sharing information, I'm helping both of us understand our social world. Who is connected to who can be trusted, who helped someone, who violated a social norm. It helps us maintain a social bond on a scale that would be impossible through physical grooming alone. According to Dunbar, language itself may have evolved partly for this purpose. Like not to discuss philosophy, not to discuss science, not even to discuss politics, but to discuss other people. Now, of course, Dunbar meant this in an evolutionary sense. Humans needed an efficient way to exchange social information, maintain relationships, and understand who has connected to whom. But this idea reminded me of something, like my recent trip back home. I had the chance to reconnect with a few of my closest girlfriends, friends I've known since school. Like many long-term friendships, we have spent years apart at different points in our lives. Different cities, different careers, different priorities. And yet, within minutes of sitting down together, it felt as if no time had passed. We talked for hours. I shared some of the things I've been going through lately. I told them about my plans, like starting this podcast. We talked about work, relationships, future plans, and all the uncertainties that come with being an adult. What surprised me was how insightful those conversations were. Like those were the same girls I sat next to in a classroom years ago. Yet somehow they had become the most wise, thoughtful women with perspectives I hadn't considered before. They challenged some of my assumptions, they gave me ideas, they encouraged me when I needed encouragement, they told me the risks, and more than once I found myself thinking, that's actually really good advice. When I came home, I realized something. Like the value of those conversations wasn't just the information I received, it was the connection they created. I felt more understood, more supported, more connected. And our friendships felt stronger afterward. So maybe Dunbar was onto something. Now, finding a number through a statistical analysis rarely turns into an academic paper to a cultural phenomenon. Most regression coefficients live quiet lives inside journal articles. Dunbar's number was different. Once the idea entered the public imagination, people started looking for that number everywhere. And honestly, didn't you do the same thing when you first heard the number? I know I did. I immediately started mentally counting people. Could I actually name 150 people I have a relationship with? Would that number hold up in my own life? Dunbar's study is based on some real-world observations. Anthropologists studied hunter-gatherer societies and found that many communities clustered around that size. Historical records suggest that English villages often averaged around 150 residents. Roman military units were frequently organized into groups of roughly that size, and modern military companies often remain in similar range. Researchers even examined Christmas card lists in the United Kingdom and found that the number of people receiving cards tended to level off around 150. Apparently, even our holiday greetings may have cognitive limits. The idea also made its way into organizations. Some religious communities have historically split into separate groups once they became too large, over 150, for everyone to maintain close social ties. When most people hear about Dunbar's number, they focus on the number of 150. But Dunbar never really claimed that all relationships are equal. Instead, he argued that our social lives are organized in layers. He himself was often more interested in the layers beneath it. According to his hypothesis, our social lives are not one giant circle of relationships. They are more like a series of concentric circles. Imagine drawing a target. At the very center, these are the people closest to you, then a slightly larger circle, then another, and another. As the circle gets larger, the emotional closeness tends to decrease. Dunbar argued that the innermost circle contains about 5 people. These are your closest relationships, the people you call first when something wonderful happens or something terrible, the people who know your secrets, the people whose opinion genuinely matters to you. The next layer contains roughly 15 people. These are close friends and family members you trust deeply, but who may not be involved in your everyday life. Then comes a larger layer of about 50 people. These are people you would comfortably invite to a large birthday party or important life event. Beyond that is the famous layer of around 150 people. These are individuals with whom you can maintain stable relationships. That's how he defines the relationship that he is measuring. Stable relationships. You know who they are, they know who you are, and there is a shared history between you two. Outside of that circle are roughly 500 acquaintances and perhaps 1,500 recognized faces. These are numbers he came up with after his calculation of brain size and cortex size. Now, before anyone starts categorizing their friends into different layers, it is important to remember that these are averages, not rules. And the interesting part is not the exact numbers. To me, the interesting part was the idea of relationships seem to come in layers. And each layer requires more time and attention the one beyond it. Think about your own life. You might recognize hundreds of people. You might exchange messages with dozens. But there are probably only a handful of people you would call in the middle of the night. And that's exactly what Dunbar was trying to explain and measure. Not why we know some people, but why we are emotionally close to only a few. His argument was that time is limited, attention is limited, and because of those limits, emotional closeness becomes a scarce resource. The deeper the relationship, the fewer of them we can maintain. Who are your 5? Could you name them right now? Who are your 15? Who has moved into those circles recently? Who has quietly drifted out from your life? One thing I find fascinating is that friendship networks are not fixed. Research suggests that friendships require maintenance, as we said a couple of times before, and if we don't invest them in time, they gradually weaken, which means friendships are constantly changing. People move, jobs change, children arrive, life gets busy, and every new relationship competes for a limited resource, our attention. And this is where the theory stopped being abstract for me. As I mentioned earlier, I moved a lot. I lived in multiple countries and multiple cities. Every move brought new people into my life. And every move taught me the same lesson. Friendship is not just about meeting people. It is about maintaining the bond you form with those people. And it takes effort. It takes effort both ways, of course. But one thing I'm genuinely proud of is that many of my closest friendships survived all those moves. Not because maintaining them was easy. Actually, it wasn't. But every new stage of life creates new demands on our attention. Careers become busier, families grow, people move away, time zones appear, life becomes more complicated. And yet somehow, certain friendships survive. Not because they are magical, because we choose to invest in them. I think most adults eventually realize this. Like, you rarely lose friends because you suddenly stop liking them. You lose friends because life gets busy, months become years, texts become drafts, phone calls become, we should catch up sometime. And before you know it, someone who used to be part of your daily life becomes someone whose birthday you remember because social media reminded you. The pandemic gave us a rare opportunity to think about these questions in real time. In some ways, COVID became an accidental global experiment on human relationships. Almost overnight, many of us lost access to the face-to-face interactions that normally would sustain our social lives. Birthdays moved online, work moved online, friendships moved online, and even family gatherings moved online. And what happened was fascinating. Technology helped. Video calls allowed us to stay connected. Group chats kept conversations going. Social media helped us to maintain awareness of one another's lives. But many people still reported feeling lonely, even while being digitally connected. For me, this was one of the strongest reminders that relationships are not just about exchanging information. They are about presence, shared experiences, spontaneous conversations, that feeling that somebody is there. COVID didn't prove Dunbar right or wrong, but it did remind us that relationships require maintenance and that not all forms of connection feel the same. Which raises an interesting question. If technology allows us to connect with more people than ever before, does it actually change the number of meaningful relationships we can maintain? Should we do further research on this? I mean, people have been doing research on this and they do come up with different numbers depend on the measurement they choose to do. That's actually one of the weakest points of this study, which we will talk about it in a minute. And at this point, Dunbar's theories can sound a little depressing. If our closest relationships are limited, does that mean everyone outside our inner circle is unimportant? Not at all. In fact, one of the most influential ideas in sociology argues exactly the opposite. A sociologist, Mark Granovetter, proposed what became known as the strength of weak ties. I'm a total believer in this. His argument was simple. Your best friends usually know the same people you know. They hear the same information. They move in the same circles. But acquaintances are different. They connect us to entirely new networks. And because of that, weak ties often become surprisingly valuable. Researchers found that people frequently learn about job opportunities through acquaintances rather than close friends. Many people meet romantic partners through broader social networks rather than their immediate inner circle. Even new ideas often arrive through these weaker connections. Because we don't know what we don't know, and mostly we don't know what our close friends don't know either. So while Dunbar focused on our closest relationships, the other layer matters too. Those 5 closest friendships may provide support, but those 50, 150, or even 500 weaker ties often provide opportunity, like richness in life, variety, diversity. In a strange way, we need both. Strong ties help us to survive difficult times. Weak ties help us to discover new possibilities. Overall, this is actually a very cool hypothesis and a very innovative attempt to measure the human capacity, like back in the 90s. Like it connects brain size, friendship, language, and culture into one coherent story. But the fact that so many people found the idea intuitively compelling helped explain why Dunbar's number became one of the most famous concepts in social sciences. Because we like flashy titles, right? Like 150, like the key number. Like the secret number. It's easier, it's like a good social cue to rely on. But it doesn't mean this theory is immune to criticisms. This brings us to one of my favorite parts of science, the critics. Several researchers have revisited Dunbar's original analysis. They used different methods and different data sets. One of the most notable studies was published in more later, like in 2021, by Swedish researchers. They reanalyzed the data and found something important. The uncertainty around the estimate was enormous. Depending on the assumptions, estimates range from fewer than 50 relationships to several hundred. So some confidence intervals were so large that it became difficult to defend 150 as a precise number. If the confidence interval in statistics runs from a handful of people to several hundred people, maybe the lesson is not the actual exact number of 150 relationships. Maybe the lesson is that human relationships are difficult to measure. And after all, what exactly counts as a relationship? Is your dentist a relationship, a former advisor, a colleague you speak to once a year, an online friend you have never met in person? The moment we start defining relationships, things become messy. And that's often where the most interesting scientific questions live, like this one was. But if the moment we change the description just a little bit, if the result changes a lot, that's a problem for scientists. And another more statistical side of criticism is that predicting humans from a regression built on other primates introduces a lot of uncertainty. We call this extrapolation. We can talk about this term later as a separate episode if there is an interest, but extrapolation means making a prediction outside of the sample you actually measured. It doesn't mean wrong. We do this a lot in both positive and social sciences. But in this one, there were high criticisms because humans are completely different in terms of their culture and the institutions they built. And one more thing I want to caution about is that we talked about friendships mostly, but there is no normative assumption in Dunbar's original argument. That number of 150 can be friends, but also enemies. That changes things, right? How did that number change when you included your enemies into the equation? The popular culture mostly presents his findings as friends, but that's not empirically true. Actually, it would be very good further research to differentiate between friends and enemies. Do we spend the same time of energy tracking both, or is one more consuming than the other one? So again, there are criticisms, which is great for the improvement of science. There will be more criticisms. But I do think Dunbar's study is important for highlighting the importance of culture and humans' ability to transcend its biological limits. Because if Dunbar is right, culture may be one of humanity's greatest inventions. Our brains may be built for relatively small social circles, but culture allows us to cooperate with many more people, like people we've never met. Flags, religions, universities, companies, sports teams, even podcasts create a sense of shared identity among strangers. In that sense, culture is a technology for scaling human cooperation beyond what our individual brains could accomplish alone. Humans are not simply primates with bigger brains. We have language, we have institutions, we have religions, sports teams, national holidays, flags, memorials, rituals, identities, like ideologies, right? Like being a feminist brings a lot of women together without needing any conversation. These are all technologies for cooperation. They allow millions of strangers to feel connected without personally knowing one or another. Think about sporting events. I'm recording this during the World Cup 2026. So thousands of people wearing the same colors, cheering for the same team, feeling connected to people they never met. Or like think about national holidays, people across an entire country participating in the same traditions. In a sense, culture helps us scale beyond the limits that biology might impose. I think that's pretty cool. That's why I always value sharing a similar ideology or being a member of communities, building communities. Like that can be any sort of community. It can be, again, like your sports team. It can be where you are from. It can be your job. It can be something you find cool. It can be your favorite movie, favorite book, like book clubs, so important. They all like bring us new connections. So the story of Dunbar's number is not really a story about 150. It's a story about 5. He summarized decades of friendship research this way. Actually, very recently I listened to an interview with him. And he said, the single most important factor affecting your mental health and your well-being, your physical health, your like overall well-being, and even how long you are going to live into the future is the number and the quality of friendships you have. And the optimal number seems to be about 5, according to his research. But it suddenly reminded me of that famous quote I keep seeing in social media a lot. Like you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It must be related. I don't know which one came first. But most of us hear that quote, right? As the career advice, surround yourself with ambitious people, successful people, productive people. But there is a deeper lesson. The people closest to us shape how we think, like how we behave, what we worry about, what we celebrate, what we believe is impossible, what we believe is possible. Like their habits become our habits. Their optimism becomes our optimism. Their fears become our fears. If Dunbar is even partially right, then perhaps the most important social decision we make is not how many people we know. It is who occupies the most precious few seats in our inner circle. Because in a world obsessed with followers, connections, audience size, science points us toward a surprisingly old-fashioned conclusion. Dunbar may not have discovered a magical number hidden somewhere inside the brain, but he did ask an important question. How many people can we truly keep in our lives? And perhaps, an even more important note, which relationships are worth the effort? We are constrained by our brains, but not completely defined by them. That, to me, is the deepest insight in the entire literature. He is the biggest contributor. Whether the number is 50, 150, or 300, the central idea survives. Relationships have costs. Attention is limited. time is limited. Every friendship is an investment decision. In some sense, friendship is less like a possession and more like a garden. It survives only if somebody keeps watering it. I mean, this is an important topic because our time constantly talks about loneliness epidemic, right? We talk about how people are more lonely, how teenagers are really struggling for their mental health, and like how teenagers like play more video games now more than ever, but they might lose some social skills. Like that's why it's a very important discussion in the light of loneliness epidemic people talk about. I want to leave you with one thought. Over the last few years, I've noticed people talking a lot about community. People say they want a village, a support system, a network they can rely on. And that's understandable. Like life is difficult, we all need people. But I sometimes wonder whether we focus too much on finding a village and not enough on becoming a villager. The friendships we admire rarely happen by accident. Someone remembered the birthday, someone made the phone call, someone checked in after the hard week, someone drove the airport, someone showed up. Someone got upset with you, but instead of cutting you off, checked on you and said, this is like you've been acting a little bit different lately. Is there something wrong? Is there something I can be helpful? Relationships built on these moments. When researchers talk about social networks, it's easy to think about what we receive from them, like support, advice, connection. But relationships are not subscriptions. They are investments. Like I won't get tired of saying this. The people in our inner circles didn't get there by chance. They got there because somebody consistently invested time, attention, and care, including us. Like if friendships really are constrained by limited resources, then perhaps the question isn't like who is in my village. Perhaps the more important question is for whom am I part of the village? Because the strongest social networks are not built by people looking for support. They are built by people providing it. I don't know, this episode is probably ending with more questions than answers, but I think that's also beautiful about science. So for today, I will say thank you for listening to Live Like a Scientist, and until next time, stay curious.